Hello and welcome to the Political Napalm. Today we're going to discuss the interesting case of former Alabama lawmaker Perry Hooper, who, much like we often see on the right, can't even get his narrative straight and has decided to go back on his word that he said only about a month ago. So here is the case of what's going on with Perry Hooper. So Perry Hooper was a former state lawmaker out of Alabama. Specifically, looks like he was from Montgomery. He got brought up on a sexual assault case by one Elizabeth Daly, who says that at the Ravello Ristorante in downtown Montgomery, Hooper got charged with first-degree sexual abuse. An affidavit attached to the arrest record said that Hooper had approached the victim from behind, grabbed her breasts and waist, shoved his pelvis into her backside, and began kissing her neck before she was able to break free. Hooper was released from jail on bond. Then Elizabeth Daly in late November said, "I am going to drop the case as I do not want to go through the turmoil of trial, and it would provide no more justice than getting a sincere public apology from Mr. Hooper. I respect and appreciate law enforcement and the jobs they have to perform. Nevertheless, I request these charges be dismissed." He then went on to give said apology and said, "I would like to express my sincerest apologies to Elizabeth Daly. On August 16th, Miss Daly was assisting my friend and me as a hostess where we were dining. I was wrong. I take full responsibility for my actions. Miss Daly is an exemplary person. My behavior was unacceptable. I hope she will accept my apology for my regrettable conduct." That's how 2022 wrapped up. The incident supposedly happened. He was charged, and then he issued his public apology, and the charges were dropped. So, he was charged with it, which seems to imply that the case was valid enough to actually go to court. And it did go to court because it was a circuit judge that granted the request to dismiss the case. But now here in 2023, as of late January, things are changing. He's now saying that he is filing a lawsuit against the police chief and the city of Montgomery, saying that he was set up. Why is he saying he was set up? It's because he's a former outspoken supporter. He is a current outspoken supporter of the former President Trump in public statements and opinion pieces. His lawsuit suggests this is the reason for this abuse charge to be attempting to discredit him. Based on information independently obtained, these enemies were working in company to destroy the plaintiff for his published letters and support as Alabama coordinator for former President Donald Trump. It then goes and rehashes what was said. It says that he issued the apology, but now he is saying that the incident with the hostess is much different than the affidavit that led to his arrest. The lawsuit says the hostess has initially told Hooper and another guest they'd have to wait 45 minutes for a table, but was later able to seat them within about 5 minutes. The lawsuit says that as Hooper was leaving the restaurant, he wanted to thank the hostess. It says he politely hugged her and kissed her on the cheek. Then Hooper and his family were left the restaurant. Hooper and his other person that he was with left the restaurant. Hooper and his family were allowed to watch the video of the incident in his lawyer's office. When the plaintiff and the family viewed the tape, it was laughable. The suit says it was only 2.2 seconds and clearly shows the plaintiff did not commit a sexual act. And the hostess told the plaintiff and his guest, "Thank you, come back," or words to that effect. Hooper, who is represented by attorney Thomas Gallion, claims in a lawsuit that he made requests under Alabama's open records law to obtain copies of the arrest records, including the video, but he's been denied access to those by the city. His suit asked the court for a declaration that the city violated his due process and the open records law. It asked the court order the city to allow him to view and copy the records. I'm confused over here because it says he watched it and it was only 2.2 seconds, but over here it says he was denied his due process and was not allowed to get at it. I just, the messaging with people who consider themselves in Trump's orbit is becoming really crazy. I mean, not becoming, it has become crazy. Why did you issue the apology, which actually seems to be a pretty legitimate apology and a pretty solid one on its face over here? I mean, what he said seems to be pretty nice. This isn't DePepe's quote-unquote apology for attacking Paul Pelosi, where it was largely sarcastic and he said he was sorry he didn't do more damage, really. This one seems to be pretty legit and made by a very adult and mea culpa type person over here. So why is he then going back on it and saying, you know, due process and everything? Why didn't he fight it then? If he knew that at the time that he was incredibly innocent of that and all he did was this like hug and cheek peck on the way out over here, why didn't he fight it back then? Why did he fear a video that existed if he didn't actually do it? If this had happened to me, if somebody levied a charge of this magnitude against me, I would absolutely say, show me the proof. Like, if I never would do anything like this, but to be accused of something like this, I would fight tooth and nail, knowing just how bad my life could become going forward if I was found guilty, especially even just being brought up on these charges. There is a social media form of guilty until proven innocent, especially in cases like this. So this is a case where Hooper should have clawed up the wall to get some kind of corroborating evidence against this. But he issued that rather sincere sounding apology. He's not mentioning here in January of 23 that he was coerced into giving that apology. He's not levying that charge. He's not saying my lawyers said this would be better if I just apologized and, you know, she wants the case to go away. If the case goes away, it's not on record. To be honest, that sounds a little on the blackmail side. He's not alleging any of that. He's just saying that I was denied my due process, that there's a video that could prove my innocence. Well, to tell you what, no, that video doesn't prove your innocence whatsoever. That video proves that while walking out of the restaurant, and likely a public setting onto a sidewalk or something, you didn't sexually abuse her at that time, and maybe she was just simply playing nice not to cause a scene by allowing this dude to give her this peck. And to be honest, let's be fair, that hug and that cheek peck is not the best thing in the world. If that waitress was a complete stranger, knows nothing of Hooper other than the fact that, you know, some hours ago she sat him at a restaurant table and this is how he acts walking out, I mean, never in a million years would I be inclined to hug and cheek peck any stranger, especially in the circumstance of a waitress getting them a table a little bit early. And why did the table get made available early? Did he slip her a 20? I mean, 45 minutes to 5 minutes is that's really big. Anytime anybody's ever sat around for a restaurant knowing you might have to wait 30 to 40 minutes and all of a sudden it becomes available in 5, you definitely would count your lucky stars on that one. So once again, we are seeing the flip-flop and the messaging just go crazy when it comes to somebody who is so deeply on the right and deeply in the Trump sphere as this guy claims to be. And now, of course, oh, it's a setup. It's a big, giant setup, just like everything else when it comes to Trumpian-styled people losing in their appropriate courts of law. It's a witch hunt. It's a hoax. It's just so utterly typical over here, and this is really no surprise. This is going to be an interesting case to watch, because this video over here is about an act, or about a period of time that occurred on the way out, not somewhere in the restaurant in the middle of eating. Or maybe he was on the way to the bathroom, ran into the... I can't imagine anybody acting this way at all. To a complete stranger, a waitress, this is a messed up person who just pushes somebody into... Where was anybody else in this? This is really what gets me. Where did this happen that they were alone and nobody saw this in a restaurant busy enough to have a 30-45 minute wait time? This is just, if this is true, this is an utterly disgusting act. The other act down here of this hug and this here it is, politely hugged her and kissed her on the cheek. I mean, that is a little grody to begin with. I mean, if we're concerned about people sniffing hair and things like that, this is not great action to begin with. But I don't know. I really have my concerns about this particular case and would love to see what happens to it. Was his rights actually violated? And okay, so what does this prove? That walking out, the parties involved seemed relatively okay, but back here, this had occurred 5, 10, 30 minutes prior. They're not mutually tied to each other by any stretch, and goes to show you what the right does with power. And if you don't believe the right does this with power, well, just go over to Google and look at the breakdown between Republican and Democrat sexual acts within lawmaking roles since the year 2000. There's a skew there, and I'm not even really going to reveal how bad the skew is in one direction, because you can kind of find it out yourself. But maybe we'll talk about that in another video. This is the Political Napalm, signing off.